So hi there, today we are going to get some great fitness tips, and we're going to have an exercise demo, multiple exercise demos, guaranteed to make us all fit, strong, happy, everything. So I'll introduce him in a minute. I'm Diane Atwood, and I write the blog Catching Health, and I also host the podcast Conversations About Aging. And this is my very own personal trainer, Andy Wight. We're at his gym. It's in Westbrook, Maine. It's called AW Strength and Conditioning, and you own it with Andy Kinslow, your business partner.
Yep.
And I would recommend him highly. He's lots of fun, and I mean, like, look at the great shape I'm in for a woman my age or even younger. Anyway, so you've got a degree in, I have it written down here. Let's see, sports medicine degree with a concentration in exercise science from Merrimack College.
Yep.
So you are not just some person off the street who's come in and decided to teach people how to
No,
be fit.
I put my time in, 4 years to get my bachelor's degree, and it was a tough road, but I'm glad I did it.
All right, good for you. I'm proud of you. Yes,
Thanks.
and I'm glad that you opened this gym because it's very, very easy for me to come here, and I enjoy it. I've been coming here since January of 2017, which is like more than 2 years. I can't believe it.
Yep.
One of the things that I noticed early on, like maybe the second or third time I came here, I didn't want to come back. It has nothing to do with you. Do not take that personally. It was just that I was crabby that day, and the last thing in the world I wanted to do. But I knew I owed it to myself. And I left in a great mood. So what's that all about?
Well, most of the time, people, the fear of coming into the gym, it's, the hard work you have to put into it, and people think it's going to be such a big challenge, but it's not. It's one of those things where, people walk in, they're like, I don't want to do this, and all of a sudden they start loosening up, and their body starts to feel a lot better, and by the end of the session, their body feels great. They feel a lot better, and which gives them a lot more confidence and happiness when they leave. Plus, when you exercise, you get a release of endorphins and stuff like that. So there's a lot of chemical stuff that happens that kind of perks you up a little bit.
Well, I can guarantee that that is the truth because it's happened to me, and so that motivates me sometimes.
Yep.
Of course you want to go because you're going to be in such a good mood when you leave. And there's also that hump period, too, that, it isn't just about being grouchy. It's just like, oh my God, I have to keep this up. But it's really worth it.
It's a habit, and it's one of those things is once you start, the first few weeks is always a challenge. That's where people struggle, is just getting into the rhythm. But after about, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks is what I usually tell people. That's when people really start to realize, oh wait, this is actually pretty cool. Now it's becoming part of my routine. And then all of a sudden they stop for a week or two and they're like, oh, I need to get back into it. And once they start back up, they're like, I can't stop. It becomes contagious.
And I have had to take breaks before. We went away on a vacation, and sometimes when that happens, you lose that rhythm of coming
That's
back.
it. Yep. It happens quite often.
But you don't lose everything. Like, say you
Nope.
take 2 weeks off or you get sick, it doesn't mean like, oh God, I've lost everything and I have to start from ground zero.
Right. No, the only thing that really happens is cardiovascularly, that gets affected a little bit if you take a couple weeks off, but strength and everything stays right about the same, and your body can adapt and get right back into it once you start back up.
Okay. So I have this wonderful Facebook group, Conversations About Aging, because we all are, no matter what age you are, we're all aging.
Yep.
And I asked the members, what are some things that you would like Andy to demonstrate or to talk about? So I've got a list of things. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I'm interested in is, do you treat us mature athletes? You said we can be called athletes.
Everybody's an athlete.
All
for
right.
me.
The same as you treat the kids you work with?
There's, yes, I treat everybody, when it comes to exercises in general, like a squat is a squat, a push-up's a push-up. It all depends on people's, activity level, their strength level. So there's a lot of little factors that come in. So you got to accommodate each program or each exercise for that individual. Kids are very supple. They can move, they can bend, their flexibility is incredible. But as we get older, we start to lose that little bit of flexibility. So the program turns more from, strength training per se into more of like strength and flexibility. So we kind of gain that mobility back. Once that happens, now we have the strength mobility. It opens up the doors and we can do a lot more activity.
So do not sell yourself short if you happen to be older
That's it.
Doesn't mean, oh, well, I'm this age and so I can't do that anymore. But there are some things that we probably shouldn't do that we might have done when we were younger. Like somebody told me we shouldn't be pounding the pavement anymore.
That's it. Yeah. Just general wear and tear. As we age, we can't rebound as quick as we used to be able to. So recovery-wise, you can't sit here and run 5 miles and expect to do it every day. Your body needs that recovery time. As we age, the process of recovery is a little bit slower, so it takes a little bit longer for us to recoup.
What do you mean by the recovery time? It's like when your heart starts to beat really fast and you
No, just like after an exercise or after a workout, it may take a day or 2 days or even 3 days to fully recover from that, exercise or training session. So it may be one of those things that we need to just take a step back and kind of find that baseline of, okay, what can I do on a daily basis, where I can continue each day, or if I go really hard today, how long does that take me to recoup?
Now, I'm going to tell you, everybody, that when I say, oh, I'm so sore from that workout, he gets this, like, awful grin on his face, like an evil grin. So we should appreciate pain, but you need to know what's pain and what's just normal.
That's it. And that's always the one thing that I like to try to talk to people about while they're exercising, because there's different levels of pain. A sharp pain is not a good sign. A dull, achy pain, it's still not a great sign, but it's maybe not something significant. So like if in the belly of the muscle, it's a dull, achy pain, kind of stiff feeling, well, that's maybe because you tried something new that you have never done, or you did too much. Okay. But that acute, sharp pain, that's usually not a good sign.
All right, so I like it when you do the evil grin, though, because it makes me feel like celebrating. That's kind of sick. Okay, let's get to these specific questions that people ask. So the way we're going to do it, sometimes you'll give us a tip, but you're going to actually demonstrate. Yep. And you can't see him, but I wanted to thank our videographer today, Barry Atwood, who is a relative. And he's walking around and he's going to follow you. And so you can go wherever you want. But what can I say? All right, so a couple of people want to strengthen their knees. And one person said her knees crackle when she bends them. What's that all about?
So the term that they usually use is called crepitus. So it's pain-free, so it doesn't really hurt, but it makes this kind of grinding, cracking noise when you're bending. And it usually happens a lot of times in the knees. I get it from time to time. I've had a lot of people like, here, can you hear this? And they start moving their knee, and you hear that grinding, crunchy sound. And there's not really something you can worry about. If it's painful, though, that's when you should definitely get checked out. But most of the time, it's usually without pain. So most times, there's not much you can do, but strengthen it and kind of just acknowledge it and just know that it's there.
Okay, so no worry about it, but acknowledge it, and if there's pain.
Yep.
All right, so you have some knee exercises to show us?
I do, and it's funny because it's one of those things where people go, I hear it all the time, squats are bad for your knees and deadlifts are bad for your backs. And I use both of them very frequently with a lot of people. And one of the things I like to teach people, and this is a good view here, is people with knee pain, so that excessive bending at the knees, that can cause the pain. Now, it could be numerous things that cause it, but if somebody comes in with knee pain and they just doesn't feel right for that day, we stay away from a lot of knee dominant exercises, which is lunging, squatting, and things like that, where you do more deadlifting or a hinge movement, where the movement comes actually from the hips, and we think about just sticking our butt back. We create a lot of tension through the backside, but it's very knee friendly. So we're not really putting a lot of stress here, but we're really strengthening the backside, and that's actually going to help and create a lot more stability in the knees.
Huh, interesting. So you're working those thigh muscles.
The thighs and then the glutes and hamstrings in the backside. Yep.
Okay. So lunges you would not recommend then if you have knee issues?
A little bit of gray there, but yeah, I would stay away from them. Most times are not really a knee-friendly exercise. If you're really a big fan, you like doing them, a reverse lunge, so when you're here and you step back and sink down into the movement, this again creates a little bit more of a knee-friendly movement as opposed to the other side where you step forward as we go forward, we have to decelerate, which puts a lot of pressure on the knee. So if you're good at lunge and you like to do lunges, do a reverse lunge. It's a little more knee friendly.
So step back instead of stepping forward.
That's it. Yep.
Okay. And the squats?
Squats is one of those ones, again, if it causes pain, it's probably not the best thing, but also that's something, if it's really painful, is to be checked out by a physician or somebody that can kind of assess that a little bit better.
You do have to demonstrate the so-called perfect squat. I mean, when we do squats, which are good for us if we don't have
Yes.
knee pain,
Yep.
what's the right way to do them?
So generally, I tell people hip width or shoulder width apart at your feet. And I always tell people to take their toes and think about, in their feet, and think about digging your feet into the ground. So and now I'm creating a lot of tension through my lower body. So now as I go down, create that tension here, my knees will come out to the sides and I sink straight down. Come right back up.
Okay, everybody, that's our goal. All the way down practically to our heels,
That's it.
right?
That's it. That's the goal.
And sometimes when you have me do them, you will have me lifting something at the same time, like a kettlebell.
Yep.
Or
I generally have people do a goblet squat, which is holding a weight here, right in front of your collarbone. And it can be a kettlebell, it can be a dumbbell. Those, doesn't really matter which one you use. I always tell people what they prefer is probably better. Kettlebells seem to be a fan favorite because they sit nicely in your palms. So that's definitely one of the ones that I have people do most of the time. Oh, perfect.
Bringing over a kettlebell.
Thank you.
One hand,
So
see that?
that's perfect. So yeah, with the kettlebell, there's a couple different ways of holding it. You can hold by the horns here. I like to flip it upside down and hold onto the ball itself. It sits nicely right into the palms. And then the movement's the same. So we just dig our feet into the ground, drive the knees out, sink straight down. The goal here, especially when you're doing a goblet squat, is you're in a good position when your elbows are on top of your knees. So I'm in a good position here, and then same thing, just coming back up.
And what does that do for you, adding the gauntlet?
So adding a little bit of weight and resistance, actually can almost preset your core, your midsection, so it stabilizes. Doing it without, I have a lot of people when they do it body weight, their squats look really bad. They lean forward, they're all over the map. I throw just a light weight in their hands and it seems to clean everything up.
And
Excuse me.
you showed us the perfect all the way down, but I don't want people to feel bad if they're still up here.
No, and that's it. And a lot of people, again, with the squat and getting that low, it's that range of motion, it's that mobility that we can struggle with because we have, depending on what you do for daily activities, we create bad habits. And I say bad habits, it's just not helpful in doing some certain exercises. So then we got to address maybe a mobility issue first, and then we progress to the squat. I always like to start people too, just for assessment purposes, is I actually will put a bench behind them, and I'll just have them come down, touch their butt to the bench, and come back up to see, can they do it, under control, how challenging it is, see if there's any other limitations. Sometimes we raise that box up a little bit higher just so I can kind of see, where their stopping point is, so to speak. And if going down to the box is no problem, then I progress them to just a body weight where there's nothing behind them, they control down and come back up.
Okay. All right, now we're going to move from knees to shoulders.
Shoulders.
Yeah, exercises to relieve pain in the shoulders. One of our members says her shoulder and upper arm often ache, especially at night. She does have good range of motion.
Okay.
Now, her husband says it's because she's on her phone too much. Do you see that a lot, though? That some issues in the arms, shoulders, whatever?
Yeah, just because everything we do is right here in front of us, it's starting to create a lot more structural issues. So when we're here, we may not even notice it, but we start rounding over. So from the side, instead of being in a nice position here, we kind of start slouching and rolling our shoulders forward, which puts them in a bad position. So that can be, especially if we're on our phone or computer, tablet, something like that. Driving is the same thing. We're a lot more, everybody's driving now a lot more. And so we're sitting here driving down the road and we're all kind of hunched over and curled up. So it's just being conscious of staying in a nice tall position.
And are there some exercises to relieve those aching shoulders and arms?
Yeah, there's some stuff that people can do is, range of motion is a big one, especially in the shoulders, because if we start losing it, we get to here, then we start supplementing extra movement, and that can actually go down into our lower back. But I always tell people that with the shoulders is you want to be able to stand nice and tall here and bring your arms all the way up. So now that my arms are basically in line with my ear. So now I'm in a good position here. What tends to happen is as we come up overhead, we start to arch our lower back. So people think, oh, look, I got good range of motion, but now my back is really under pressure and I'm not moving my shoulders as much as I'm moving my lower back. So that's one of the things I have people do where, I'll just show you guys here at the wall, where I have them just lean into the wall here, just stay nice and tall, and then you start by pushing your back flat and then just coming straight up overhead and going thumbs right into the wall without trying to move forward, arch, or anything else like that. So you want to be firm to the wall and just straight up and down. So that helps with just getting that mobility, and it's a great way to assess to see where you're at. Strengthening wise, with the shoulders, it's a lot of rowing motions is what I tend to have people do. So that would be here. So I'll show you guys like a one-arm row. So with the kettlebell, again, I want to hinge. I'll go into a little split stance, and then I'm going to hinge forward just a little bit. So the weight's straight underneath my shoulder here, and then I'm going to pull up, and I want to try to squeeze my shoulder blade in towards my spine while I'm pulling in, as opposed to kind of curling it here, which puts a little more pressure on the shoulder. So I want to really think about pulling up, squeezing right in between my shoulder blades.
And again, you could use any kind of like a dumbbell.
Dumbbell, kettlebell, yep.
You could do, some people, they use cans of vegetables. Or
That's
whatever.
it, gallon of milk.
Or do you even have to use anything if you're not able to hold anything?
No,
just that motion?
just that motion too. Yeah, if you want to just using the weight of your arm as that resistance, but just consciously think about just pulling in and then just trying to really squeeze that shoulder blade back. Again, one of the other things we see a lot is people tend to come here, and now my shoulder goes into a bad position because I'm lifting my elbow way too high. So again, that's going to put extra pressure and strain here. So we want to be conscious that we're not going too high. So basically this part of my arm wants to come level or even with my side.
Okay. I just tried to do it over here on the side, and it felt really good without any weights.
Yep.
All right, now strengthening our core. We hear so much about strengthening our core, and I'm guessing that if you have a strong core, then that's going to help with other issues.
It will. Yep.
So what's the core?
The core, I always tell people, basically mid-thigh to about the rib cage. That's generally what I call the core, and that involves everything in between. The core itself is helping stabilize your lower back, but it also creates, it gives you that extra oomph for strength. So a strong core can allow you to move a lot of heavy objects and be stable at the same time.
Okay, do you want me to move that kettlebell out?
Excuse me.
Trip over it?
No, we should be good here.
Okay,
All right.
so core exercises.
So core exercise. So I'm going to use, I'm going to start with a bridge, and then from there I'm going to show a dead bug. So those would be the two that I always like to start people off with, just because it warms everything up, kind of gets the whole body prepped.
Do you need a mat?
Nope, I should be good.
Okay.
All right. So a bridge here. So we're just going to lie flat on our back. Hands can be just off to the side here. And what you want to think about is just pushing your hips up towards the ceiling. But a lot of times we just come here and we push up, and now I'm fully extended, but I'm fully extended in my lower back. My hips really aren't doing the work. So what you want to think about is, I always say, pinch a penny between your cheeks. So you really want to squeeze your butt muscles, your glutes, as you're pushing up. See, now my range of motion isn't as high as it was, but all that focus is now right on my hips, and that's the main thing here. So that creates a nice stable platform.
And you're not arching your back.
And not arching the back. Yep.
That would put some undue stress on your lower.
That's it. Yep. So that's the bridge there. The next one is a dead bug. So the dead bug, if you ever kill a fly, they end up like this. And that's the position we're in. So here, the cool part about this exercise is there's a lot of different ways to make it more challenging. If you're just starting out, I tell people to grab onto both knees, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna let one leg go out and keep the other leg pulled in. So this leg's gonna go straight out and come back in. So while I'm doing this, the focus here is to keep my lower back flat to the floor. Okay, so when we tend to go out here with both legs, we start to arch. So we're losing that stability here in the midsection. So keeping that leg pulled in keeps my back nice and flat to the floor, but it works the deep core muscles. So if you want to go progress from there, you can start with your hands up here, and now I'm actively pulling this knee in, letting this leg go out, and keeping my back flat to the floor, and then I just alternate side to side.
So when I come and have a session, you always have me start by doing some of
Yes.
those. So that's a good way to start your routine.
Yep, it is.
All right, well, thank you. And what about sit-ups and things like that?
I generally stay away from sit-ups for the most part.
Why?
The core midsection is not so much for movement as it is for stability. So what our midsection does is help keep us nice and stable. We don't walk around and do this all day, so that's the motion of a crunch. But the one thing I get people into doing is it's called the hollow body. So it's very similar to what people would perceive as a crunch. So being on your back, and again, this one's a little more advanced, so it's not something to just jump out of the gate with, because it is a little bit more challenging. But you start on your back here, you're gonna lift both legs up, and then you're just gonna raise your shoulders off the ground. So I'm here, creating a lot of tension through my core, through the midsection here, and then rest. So you can kind of come up, hold, as opposed to coming here and just going into a crunch and just creating a lot of flexion.
What about while you're down there?
Yeah.
Plank?
Oh, yeah. So a plank is another way that people like to activate the core. The plank is one of those ones that I use quite frequently. The proper position to be in is you're going to put your elbows underneath your shoulders, and then the goal is to be up on your toes. So we're going to go in this position here. So elbows line up underneath my shoulders. I'm up on my toes, and I want to just create a nice straight line all the way down my body.
How long?
I generally have people do anywhere between 10 to 30 seconds. Once they get over that mark of 30 seconds, we change the exercise.
What do you mean?
We can do a lot more functional activities.
Like lift an arm or?
Yep, you can start lift. Yep, you can do one where you're here, and we just want to raise one leg at a time. Again, while we're doing that, there's a little bit of a rotational factor that we're resisting against. So as we open up or lift that leg, part of us wants to open right with it, but we want to just move that leg, not the whole body.
And while you're there, it's the perfect push-up.
The perfect push-up.
Now, you're talking to people who might not want to do your kind of perfect push-up.
I'll show you a couple variations.
Okay.
We can cover.
That we can do at home?
Absolutely, yep. So a push-up. So we're going to be in this position here. This time hands are going to be out underneath our shoulders. Again, we're going to stack, put both feet up. Again, like that plank position, we want to be nice straight line. And from here, we want to lower all the way down to the floor and press right back up.
Yeah, I do 20 of those every morning. Good thing.
So with the push-ups, a lot of people have a chicken wing effect where as we come down, we flare. So we're here and then we lose it. We want to keep those elbows tucked in a little bit, because I always tell somebody, the push-up's like when you push somebody. So if you want to come push me, your hands are going to be here. You're not going to swing them out like this because we lose a lot of power and strength. So you want to keep those elbows almost at like a 45-degree angle at the shoulder.
So before you go though, there's modifications for people who can't.
I'm going to show those right now.
Okay, over here.
Yep.
All right.
Excuse me. So with this kind of a push-up, a lot of people use the vanity, or a countertop, the kitchen, anything that's kind of about hip height or right around the belly button area. So I'm just going to use a barbell and a squat rack. So my positioning starts off the exact same. So I'm going to have both feet on the floor. Again, my hands are going to line up underneath my shoulders, but this time I'm not using as much as of my body weight. So that's the big thing here is push-ups all body weight for the most part. And we use probably, I think it's somewhere around 60% or so of our body weight. So if you do one push-up, you're pushing 60% of your body weight. Here, we're just changing that. So we're we're decreasing the amount of body weight, so it allows us to do more and do them properly. So with our hands up here, again, staying nice and tall, now we're just lowering our body into it and pressing away. And this one, you could actually progress. If you have something like this or have the ability to lower it, that's when you can start progressing to get prepared for the floor.
So that's how you have me do mine, but, the bar's much lower.
Much lower.
All right, so if you have a strong core, does that mean that you will automatically have a strong lower back?
Not necessarily. And having a strong core, you can have a lot of stability and strength through the midsection, but there can be other factors if your lower body's a little bit tight. People always complain about tight hamstrings and lower back issues. So even though everything here, you can hold the plank for a while, you could do the dead bugs and have no issue, there could still be other factors that can cause back pain.
So these exercises, the core exercises that
Yep.
you just showed us, will any of those hurt your back if you have a back issue? Would you stay away from certain movements?
The dead bugs and the bridges, I would recommend doing them because they help strengthen up your glutes and then the deep core muscles, especially with the dead bugs. And the one thing is if you do the movement and it does cause pain, then it's probably something that you should avoid. But one of the big factors that we have, and I've seen a lot, is when people have back pain, their first thing is to stop doing everything. And that is actually probably the worst thing that can be done. Is when people have back pain, they're like, you know what, my back hurts, I'm just gonna sit. When we're in that position, everything tends to tighten up. So now we're working twice as hard to kind of get back to where we were.
So what's a good basic exercise maybe that someone should do to strengthen their lower back? Or
A lot of times, especially in physical therapy, they use bridging variations like that. They use a couple where you actually just lay in that position with your knees bent and you just work on belly breathing, which is just a big inhale, controlled in and then controlled out. And that actually will help create a little bit more of a foundation through the midsection.
Yeah, I have found occasionally I have back issues, and by pulling the knees up, like lying flat on the ground and pulling my knees up feels absolutely wonderful.
Yep, it does. And it's one of those things when you're in that laying position, there's not a lot of pressure on your spine. So we have that vertical pressure when we're standing. When we lay down, we can actually, we get rid of that. So we actually create a nice little stable platform to perform some exercises.
Okay. All right. Anything in particular that we can do to help our balance?
Yes. The balance. Oh, it's always about the balance. There's good days and bad days. That is the one thing about balance is you could be on point today and tomorrow it's like you've never done anything before. So it is one of those things. It does come and go, and there's moments where I can't do this today. Oh, I'm struggling with it. And it's just maybe an off day. You could be a little bit more tired than you thought and that sort of thing. With the balance, a lot of times we think, oh, well, I'll just stand on one leg and just hold this position, which is great and creates a little bit of a baseline as, okay, I'm holding this position. How long can I do it before I start moving all over the place? I always tell people too is when we work on balance, we want to work on balance with movement. And one of the things that we've done quite frequently is a single leg RDL with a reach. And what it is we set ourselves up just a little distance away and we have a target that we want to reach to. So now we're not focused so much on trying to balance, but being able to reach out and touch something. So our goal changes. So I'm working on my balance and control as I come forward, but I'm not really thinking about, okay, how long can I hold this?
You're doing a hinge.
Yep, and this is a hinge movement. Yep, so the movement comes right at my hips. Everything stays in a nice straight line as I come forward, a little bit of a reach, and then I just come back up.
So sometimes you'll put a little cone. He puts a little cone on the ground and he makes me do that and I hate it. I hate it because I'm all over the place. I'm not the least bit graceful. And the other thing is you're supposed to reach with one hand, right? And one the other leg. Is it the opposite or the same? And I never remember.
So I always say you want to reach with the opposite hand of the foot that's working.
Okay.
So when let's say your left leg's on the floor, you're going to reach with your right hand.
Oh, see, I did it wrong.
So it's a cross body position.
Okay.
And it's just like If you're like with basketball, for instance, somebody going up for a layup, we're not going to jump off our right leg with our right arm. We're going to jump with our left leg and right arm.
Okay, the arms, please. So I think I have my grandmother's arms. Maybe we all get our grandmother's arms at a certain point. It's like the skin sort of like jiggles underneath. Is there any salvation for us, or is that just...
It's part of the aging process for the most part. You can do certain exercises to help kind of strengthen the area. But generally, that's always a tough one because there's a lot of factors that can come into it. Genetics play a big role. Diet can play a role. I've seen some, former bodybuilders that actually, once they lose their muscle mass, have a little bit extra skin there just because they were once so big. So there's a lot of different factors that can come into play with that.
But a good arm strengthening exercise is what just...
You can't go wrong with a bicep curl.
Yeah.
That's usually like the go-to for most people because it's something that we're familiar with. We see it all the time. When you see these motivational videos, you see bench press, where the guy's laying under the bar, but you also see people doing curls and stuff like that. So it's just exercise that we have a lot more familiarity with. Okay. But that will help here. Again, you don't want to do it too much because it can, if you're in a bad position, turn the shoulder over, you can put a little strain there. The other thing that people like to do is like a tricep exercise. So sometimes they do an extension where their hand comes up above their head and they just bend down at the elbow and then they come back up, and that works the whole back side of the arm. And you can add a little weight and resistance to make it a little more challenging.
What about reaching behind you and doing the doorknob twist? Is that anything that's worth doing?
That can be, yeah. That actually, there's a lot where I've seen a lot now where they're doing the movements where they call it handcuffing, where you come here and then you come forward to help strengthen up loosen up the shoulders. But when you're in this position here, and if you just turn your hand over, you just hit a little bit more areas as far as the shoulder goes. So you can create a little more tension back and forth. Again, it's one of those things, as soon as we turn that thumb down, we just don't want to dip our shoulder forward because then we're losing that little bit there.
Okay. Can we have six-pack abs?
We all have them. Some just show better than others. Yeah, that's one of those things. A six-pack is, a lot of it's genetics. A lot of it's genetics and diet. Those are the two big factors when it comes to a six-pack. Having a visible six-pack doesn't mean that you have a strong core. It just means that you maybe have a better diet or you're just genetically, that your body's structured like that.
Right, so we shouldn't aspire necessarily to get them.
Yes, yep.
All right. How about, my last question, then I want to know if you've got any ideas of things that we should talk about, is pain relief in general. Some people, they suffer from chronic pain, they just kind of hurt all over. Would you recommend any movements in particular that might make you feel better?
The big thing for when it comes to pain management, pain relief, is a lot of flexibility and mobility training, stretching. That's always the big one. Because as we do that, we get into a breathing, like mantra almost, where you're just sitting there controlling your breathing, which helps kind of shut down certain parts of your nervous system, which, well, not completely, but it manages it a little bit better, and it helps give us a little bit extra relief. So I would do a lot of stretching. Stretching's usually a big one for people to help with that.
You showed me a stretch one time, Andy's insomnia stretch. It's like when you can't sleep at night.
Oh yeah,
How
yeah.
does that go?
So it's basically just a toe touch. So you just start here, feet about hip, shoulder width apart, and you just come forward and just drop right down, just go into a toe touch here. When I can't sleep, I usually just kind of hang out for a while. It creates a lot of tension all the way through the back of the legs, but then I can just sit here and breathe, and if I take a deep breath in, you'll notice that my shoulders and my upper body starts to lift. So here, and as I exhale, I'm getting actually a deeper stretch. So again, breathing into the belly and creating a little bit there as you inhale, so it creates a little bit more tension. That's why you get that little bit of a lift. But in that exhale, that's a little bit more relaxation. So it helps kind of loosen everything up.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So it was relaxing just to
was
watch you like. Anything that you think would be helpful to?
Well, just to go over the last topic that we had was the stretching. One of the big ones, that's a pretty good one for kind of just relaxing and stretching out. I have a lot of people do a hip flexor stretch because generally just from riding in cars, sitting in chairs, the front of our hips are always pretty tight, and that can actually cause a little bit of irritation in our lower back. So I always like to have people, find a chair, something where you can elevate your foot up, and then from here just staying nice and tall and just gonna shift your weight forward. Here you might, if you're really tight, you could have a little bit of a stretch here through the inside of the leg, but then we're targeting that hip flexor on the opposite side, so that foot that's behind us. And this actually will help kind of keep us nice and loose, and this is always a good one just to throw in there, because wherever we go, there's always a table, a chair. Some people aren't appreciative when you put your foot on their furniture, but it's a nice way to get a good stretch here through the hips.
So it's important to have flexible hips.
Yes, yep. That's always a big one.
I mean, like that song from my youth about the hip bones connected to the
Yeah.
home. Everything is
It
connected.
is. It's all. It's if you have a foot issue, it could lead to a back issue, because when we have certain areas that hurt, we change our gait on how we walk, so we can create a hitch. And we don't notice it. It's subtle, but you can see if you watch people. You can see them. They tend to have a little bit of a hitch in their step. All of a sudden, they start complaining about their lower back hurting, and it's because it was related to something else.
All right. Well, Andy,
Did I answer all the questions?
I
Did
think
do
he
good?
was wonderful. I think so. And what I'll do is, if anybody has other questions, I know where to find you.
Absolutely.
And I'll just bring them, and we can do more videos if there are very specific topics or exercises you want to see. This is Andy Wight. He is my very own personal trainer, and if you happen to live in the Westbrook area, he could be yours too. He's at 14 Cumberland Street in Westbrook, and that's in Maine, at AW Strength and Conditioning, which you own with Andy Kinslow.
Yep.
And I'm Diane Atwood, and I write the blog Catching Health, and I have a podcast, Conversations About Aging, and I can vouch that he's funny, friendly, respectful. You want to throw any more adjectives you want people to know you by?
No, I think that's probably good.
Yeah, hopefully this all helped you to be happy, strong, fit, and so now I'm going to do some hip stretches.
Perfect.
Throw this down, and I'm going to just watch me. So this is going to be balance challenge.
That's also, yes. So
Yeah,
I didn't
balance
add that
challenge,
part
because I
in.
can feel it, So if I can make a fool of myself on here as I start to waver, so can you in the secrecy of your own home. Thank you for watching, everybody.